Tonight, a Melbourne mum's act of bravery as a gunman opens fire metres from children in Melbourne's north.
A new football racism bombshell as Alistair Clarkson returns to Arden Street.
Labor rolls out $1 billion transport promise as the Liberals' ditched Dan ambulance runs into trouble.
Why Melbourne is facing a shortage of children's medicines.
Taronga Zoo plunged into lockdown with 5 lions on the loose.
And later, buy, sell or hold, making the call on property this spring.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Rebecca Madden and Mike Amor.
Good evening. A brave mother has risked her life to rescue a neighbour after a gunman opened fire in a northern suburb street.
He is still on the run tonight after firing several shots just metres from children in what police describe as a random attack.
9 p.m. and a quiet neighbourhood is rocked by violence. An innocent father was confronted by a gunman in his driveway. The man's partner and baby were home at the time.
I was in shock. I nearly have a heart attack. I have a 5-month-old baby.
To escape, the dad sped off in his car. Several shots were fired. The victim crashed his car outside Hong Tran's home, pleading for help. Without hesitation, the mother rushed out, telling him to hide inside her home as she called 000.
He approached us and said, he got shot at and they were chasing him, they were trying to kill him.
But Mrs. Tran knew the danger wasn't over.
I yelled out at them. I said, I have kids, please don't shoot.
The father of 3 says he owes his life to Mrs. Tran and her husband.
Oh, thank you. They saved my life.
As police probe why he was the target of a random attack and hunt the gunman who was with 2 other people.
At this stage, I will reiterate that we do not believe the victims are known to the offenders.
The violent crime spree didn't end there. The trio ran 300 metres to this street and threatened a young driver at gunpoint before stealing his car.
It's really disgraceful and it is quite frightening for the victims.
A final message from a Good Samaritan.
It's ridiculous. What are you doing? It's inhumane. Why would you do that? Randomly attack people?
Cassie Zervos, 7 News.
There's been a bombshell twist in the Hawthorn racism scandal after a star witness refusing to take part in the AFL's investigation. The development overshadowed Alistair Clarkson's first day back at Arden Street, the coach saying he should be free to live his life while he defends himself.
Day 1 at his new club, but Alistair Clarkson is still haunted by accusations from his past.
Alistair, do you think it's appropriate that you start coaching with the investigation ongoing?
Well, that's a decision that's been made by the club and myself. The minute they are just allegations, and we're going to defend ourselves pretty strongly.
Clarkson is vowing to clear his name, but a key witness is now refusing to take part in the Hawthorn racism investigation. Amy, the partner of a former player, says, "Why would I ask the protectors of the perpetrators who caused me all this trauma to then investigate the abuse?"
Like anyone in this world, until the allegations are proven, you should be able to get on and live your life.
Amy has also released this piece of art titled The Dream, The Cost, which appears to reference shock accusations that Clarkson and Lions coach Chris Fagan pressured her and her Hawthorn partner to terminate their pregnancy.
I'd be very, very surprised if we weren't able to put a really, really strong case forward that these allegations have been reported in a different way than we saw them when we were at the club.
Through her lawyers, Amy says it's a little hard to speak up when it feels like your voice box has been pulled out of your throat. The independent investigation into the treatment of First Nations players and their families at Hawthorn is expected to be completed in late December.
It's been a tough 4 or 5 weeks for all of us. And what we do know is that we always had the care of our players right at the highest priority of our football club.
Natalie Anides, 7 News.
There's been an embarrassing blunder for one of the major parties just as the election campaign is getting underway. State political reporter Charnel Valla has the details. And Charnel, the Liberal Party has come under fire over an ambulance stunt.
Well, the Liberal Party unveiled their Ditch Dan ambulance today, but were quickly told their stunt could be an offence. They're sticking with it anyway. They're going to be driving it all over town. Meanwhile, the Labor Party jumped on a big red bus. The election wheels were in motion and the Liberal Party thought they were off with lights and sirens.
This ambulance is going to get out there and find those 4,000 beds. Where are they?
Until their Ditch Dan ambulance quickly flatlined.
So we have what's called the Ambulance Service Act, and it's actually an offence under that Act to operate a vehicle with ambulance written on it.
Labor was on board their big red bus. Inside the Premier, wife Catherine and senior Transport MPs. They arrived in Ballarat with a $1 billion promise.
We're going to add more services, order more trains and make sure that people in regional Victoria pay no more, in fact pay the same as people in metropolitan Melbourne.
Regional fares would be capped at $9.20 or $4.60 for concession, saving Bendigo commuters almost $60 and Geelong commuters nearly $20 a day. Last month, Matthew Guy announced $2 capped fares for Melbourne commuters at a cost of $1.3 billion. The Transport Department says it will actually cost about $2.6 billion.
He has not been able to explain it. Hence, we've had to do our own costings and do his job for him. He could release his costings today and clear up this matter.
When we release it is when we release it. But they'll all be released before the election. The transport policy does stack up.
The Liberal Party is hoping a $100 saving on water bills will win votes.
We're not promising the world, we're promising solutions that are real, that are realistic.
They'll make the saving by freezing service charges for 5 years. Chanel Vella, 7 News.
Emotional vigils are being held across the country for an Indigenous teenager beaten to death on his way home from school. Estelle Greepink is in Thornbury tonight. Estelle, organisers are calling this a national day of action.
Beck, they've told us that they want to see real change after the tragic death of Cassius Turvey, the 15-year-old schoolboy who was attacked and later died in Perth just as he was walking home from school. Attendees here in Thornbury are joining thousands right around the country tonight, paying tribute to this young man and showing their support to his heartbroken family. Sam May is a cousin of Cassius Turvey. He's helped organise this vigil in Thornbury tonight. He says this event isn't about anger. It's about hurt.
I want people to know the story about Cassius and the love he had for the world. I want people to know from the stories that we tell of just how beautiful and treasured he was to the family and to everyone.
Beck, the vigil here has just started, but it's expected that the crowd will continue to grow over the next hour. They're planning to have a minute's silence and release balloons to remember this young man lost. Beck?
Estelle, thank you.
The Reserve Bank Governor is warning Australians the cost of living crisis is about to get worse.
Philip Lowe signalled more interest rate pain to stop inflation from spiralling out of control.
Okay. Defence Minister Richard Marles shoulders the latest in high-tech weaponry as the government turns its sights onto shooting down inflation.
Inflation's now expected to peak at around about 8% by the end of the year.
That prediction from the Reserve Bank yesterday as it announced the 7th consecutive rate rise, now signalling it is prepared to go back to 0.5% rises if necessary.
If we need to step up to larger increases again to secure a return of inflation to target, we will do that.
Dr Lowe declaring inflation evil, saying not embarking on the RBA's rapid-fire round of interest rate rises would have left homeowners in even more pain.
If this were to happen, the evil of inflation would be with us for longer, and the eventual increase in interest rates needed to bring inflation down would be even larger.
The Treasurer says predictions of inflation going higher for longer justify his decision not to splash the cash in cost of living relief in last week's budget.
It would have compounded inflation, compelled the RBA to go harder, and sent the cost of living even higher.
It's a budget that confirms that the price of everything is going up except real wages.
Angus Taylor turning Labor's most effective attack line from the last election back on itself. As economists say that while inflation's smashing family budgets, for the federal budget, it's a bonus. Higher prices means higher tax revenues.
We tax the bucket of dollars in the economy, and inflation means that bucket is bigger and the tax man makes more money.
And so do the banks, as the Commonwealth and Westpac follow NAB passing yesterday's full 0.25% rise onto their borrowers. Mark Riley, 7 News.
A teenage girl is in a coma after falling from the roof of a moving car in Altona. Cameron Bowe has the details. Cam, 2 men are facing charges.
Beck, the pair was arrested yesterday. The 17-year-old girl suffered life-threatening head injuries in the fall. She's in a coma at the Royal Melbourne Hospital. She'd been among hundreds of people celebrating Samoa's win over France at the Rugby League World Cup. A 21-year-old man from Braybrook is the alleged driver. He's facing charges including dangerous driving causing serious injury, recklessly caused serious injury and failing to assist after an accident. It's also been revealed that the 21-year-old is a learner driver. A 21-year-old man from Caroline Springs who was allegedly a passenger has been charged with reckless conduct endangers serious injury. Both men have been given bail to front court in January, Beck.
Cameron Bowe, thank you.
International supply chain problems have left Victoria critically short of children's medicines. One antibiotic is now so scarce it could take months to clear the backlog of orders.
It's one of the most prescribed antibiotics in the country, but it's getting harder and harder to find.
Shortages do cause a lot of disruption and frustration for patients, for doctors and pharmacies.
Amoxicillin is used to treat common conditions in children like ear and chest infections. Supply has been dwindling for weeks. It's become so scarce, most pharmacies around the country have now run out.
This has ranged from children's formulations that are suspensions and also tablets and capsules for adults.
The shortage is being caused by manufacturing issues. It's led to a major breakdown in global supply chains.
When one brand goes out of stock, it then puts pressure on the other brands because everyone's looking at alternatives.
There are some alternative medications and a new delivery is due this month, but it could take weeks or even months to clear the growing backlog of orders. International supply chain problems have hit other drugs too, like Ozempic, a vital diabetes drug hit by low supply and high demand after it went viral on TikTok for its weight loss benefits.
Shortages and interruptions of supply of Ozempic could go into 2023, unfortunately.
According to the Therapeutic Goods Administration, 326 medications are in short supply. Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
A prisoner has sparked a major security scare at the Ravenhall jail. The man climbed onto the roof just after 2 this morning. Prison staff decided it wasn't safe to approach him. Police negotiators were called in. The prison was placed into lockdown during the standoff. The inmate remained up there all day.
Sydney's Taronga Zoo has been plunged into lockdown after 5 lions escaped their enclosure. A group of campers staying there for the roar and snore experience was told to run for their lives.
A fortress designed to keep animals in and people out. Not today.
Have you heard the news?
No.
Lions had escaped.
Oh, have they? 5 lions, 1 adult and 4 cubs on the loose after escaping their enclosure around 6:30 this morning. The entire zoo locked down.
It was less than 10 minutes between the lions exiting their main exhibit and the full emergency response being enacted.
More than 20 guests were staying on site. The roar and snore camping experience, more roar than snore.
We didn't really know what was going on. We just woke up, and how bad can it be?
The Perry family's wildlife adventure, a little too wild.
They came running down the tent area saying that there's a code 1, get out of your tent, leave your belongings behind, run, come with us.
The guests were forced to hide in a bathroom for almost 90 minutes.
Quite shocked and terrified. Wasn't too sure what was going on.
Lydia rushed to pick up her daughter Kayla and best friend Anya from their first school camp. They certainly had a story to tell.
For me, it was quite scary because a lion roaming around the zoo is like, not my thing.
Not anyone's thing, Kayla.
the lions' freedom didn't last long.
4 of the lions calmly made their way back into their main exhibit and dens, and 1 lion cub was safely tranquilised.
With the doors shut behind them, the gates to Taronga reopened. Visitors arriving, wondering if their day at the zoo would end in such an uproar.
Well, it's not your normal, thing that goes on in a school camp.
Bill Hogan, 7 News.
Victoria has just recorded its wettest October on record, with the risk of floods set to continue for at least the next 2 months. The average rainfall for the state was around 95 millimetres. It's usually 65. It's been a record year for the SES2. Volunteers have responded to more than 13,000 calls for help, well up from last year's previous record of 10,700 call-outs.
The Melbourne Cup winners have celebrated Gold Trip's history-making win in style, already setting their sights on a repeat in 2023. Triumphant trainer Kieran Mars revealed how some wise words from his mum helped pull off a Flemington fairy tale.
Yes, big guy!
After a huge night celebrating with families and owners, no one could blame Kieran Marr and David Eustace for adopting a slower pace.
Who's pulled up better, you or the horse?
Definitely the horse. The horse seems in great order.
Stallion Gold Trip was looking fresh. He's the first horse to win the Cup carrying the field's top weight since Makybe Diva.
A race like the Melbourne Cup, you never think it's actually within your grasp.
It was a redemption story for jockey Mark Zara. He missed out riding last year's Cup winner because he was serving a penalty for attending a house party during lockdown.
I've won a Melbourne Cup. It goes down in history, and you can never be taken away from you. So it's just elation,
Marr doesn't come from a racing family. Mother Eileen taking some credit for his success for drilling in this advice.
You've got to make things happen.
Celebrations for Connections continued in South Yarra over a late lunch. Gold Trip will now enjoy a well-deserved break before he returns to racing in autumn ahead of a likely tilt at next year's Melbourne Cup. Attention now turns to the Oaks tomorrow. A colourful ladies' lunch kicked off festivities. Racing's new double act confirming their champion didn't miss out on the sweet taste of success.
Yeah, he does get a few little treats, M&Ms and
snakes as well. He likes snakes.
Yeah, he loves snakes.
Emma O'Sullivan, 7 News.
And Tim Watson's looking ahead to sport now. Tim, a footy champion, has been stealing secrets during the off-season.
He has, Beck. He's just back from an overseas trip to visit the world's top clubs. We'll speak exclusively to him shortly. Also, a former Hawk meets his new Magpie teammates. The Demons eyeing off grand final redemption in the AFLW. See how Aaron Finch fared with his sore hamstring ahead of the Aussies' must-win World Cup clash, and the coach of a very high-profile team has been sacked over there in the States, all coming up shortly.
OK, thanks, Tim. A pizza giant is facing major wage theft claims. Up next on 7 News, why Domino's could be forced to repay millions.
Also ahead, new travel for Victorians looking for a holiday.
Olympic gold medalist Neil Brooks starts his fight to clear his name.
Patrick Cripps throws his weight behind a cause close to his heart.
And later, why King Charles may be left off our new $5 note.
And there's a stretch of warmth and sunshine on the way. I'll show you when it will begin later in 7 News.
International travel to and from Melbourne continues to grow, with Air Asia X returning after a 2-year hiatus. The airline's first flight here since the pandemic touched down this morning from Malaysia.
I think what's happening in Victoria is an incredible recovery story. We are coming back. June 22 was bigger than June 2019, so pre-pandemic.
Virgin Australia has launched flights to Queenstown with return fares for $409.
Pizza giant Domino's has faced court fighting one of the biggest wage theft claims in Australian history. If guilty, the company could be forced to repay tens of millions of dollars.
The largest pizza chain in Australia is at the centre of the country's latest wage theft scandal. It's alleged tens of thousands of Domino's store workers and delivery drivers were underpaid, well below the award.
These workers didn't get any casual loading.
They didn't get any penalty rates for working on weekends.
On day one of the landmark trial, the workers' barrister alleged Domino's misled franchise operators by directing them to pay staff under a workplace agreement rather than the fast food award.
They were paid under rotten old zombie agreements.
The court heard Domino's will argue it only provided pay rates to franchisees as an opinion and not a directive. The pizza giant joins a long list of companies accused of wage theft. The University of Melbourne has announced it will repay $22 million to casual employees, while Coles, Woolworths, Bunnings and top restaurant chains have had their own scandals. Class actions of this size often settle out of court, but with Domino's strongly disputing the allegations, this trial could run for up to a month.
It's a really important case to hold big business to account in circumstances where workers have lost so much.
Sonia Marinelli, 7 News.
Olympic swimmer Neil Brooks has faced court accused of defrauding his business partner of $2 million.
Today, his alleged victim emphatically denied trying to have the gold medalist bashed.
Straight into the deep end at a Brisbane court. Olympian Neil Brooks and his wife Linda back from Bali to fight fraud charges. Neil, how are you feeling about having your day in court?
Firstly, I'm happy to be back in Australia.
The pair accused of defrauding business partner Glenn Melchek of $2 million 14 years ago, a failed plan to sell sports tattoo sleeves called Team Skins.
We know what happened, we were there, so I'm actually looking forward to today.
Brooks's lawyer grilling Melchek about a meeting in January 2008 where he alleges the couple dishonestly induced him to invest. The court hearing, Linda was out of the country and could not have met him. Asked about an incident in a Coolangatta car park in 2010 where Brooks was bashed by two men, Melchek said he was close by but didn't see Brooks punched or threatened, saying Brooks was bleeding after tripping. So you pleaded guilty in the Southport Magistrates Court to public nuisance when Neil Brooks tripped over his thongs and fell? Yep. Brooks's lawyer suggested Melchek went to great lengths to get money out of the Olympian, trying to get him bashed, then going to the media years before making a police complaint. Melchek's no was emphatic, also denying he got caught out going behind the Brooks' back to the manufacturer. The hearing continues tomorrow. Neil, do you still feel confident about having the charges dropped?
I appreciate you guys coming out. It's not appropriate for me to make a comment at this stage, but I'll be more than happy to talk to you tomorrow.
Rosanna Kingson, 7 News.
Brownlow medalist Patrick Cripps is getting behind a cause close to his heart as an ambassador for Movember. The charity tackles men's health issues, which Cripps saw firsthand when teammate Sam Doherty battled testicular cancer.
I think this is important, not only to this cause, but to raise awareness and help people not only get checkups, but also stay sort of proactive in their mental and physical health.
Coles is selling Movember merchandise and donuts to help raise money.
There are new moves on the way for betting companies, hard on the heels of a self-confessed problem gambler's extreme Melbourne Cup protest. Details next on 7 News.
Also ahead, the car that shocked police in Melbourne's west.
See how giant runaway Christmas baubles unleashed havoc in London.
And recreating Qantas's first flight 100 years on.
A former fugitive has fronted court to fight a murder charge. A committal hearing was told Christopher Hillman barely knew the man he's alleged to have shot dead at a Frankston home last year. The 44-year-old then allegedly spent 6 days on the run. He was arrested following a 9-hour siege. A magistrate will decide whether Hillman should stand trial.
Betting companies will be forced to highlight the risk of losing under a shake-up of gambling advertising.
It comes just one day after a chronic gambler vandalised the Flemington track to make the same point.
It was vandalism by a confessed problem gambler. 1,000 litres of oily sludge hosed onto the track at Flemington yesterday morning. Online, he said the Melbourne Cup is the super spreader event for the virus of gambling addiction. This afternoon, the damaged patch was ripped up and replaced with large rolls of new grass ahead of Oaks Day tomorrow. As the police hunt continues for the vandal, the federal government wants to reduce the odds of problem gambling because per capita Australia is the worst in the world for gambling losses. Their target?
I never miss having a bet.
Advertising by online betting companies. So this...
Gamble responsibly.
...will be out from next March.
What we know is it doesn't really work.
Gamble responsibly has been devastating. It's been blaming the individual by saying, you're irresponsible.
Among the 7 new compulsory rotating messages, chances are you're about to lose. What's gambling really costing you? Imagine what you could be buying instead. And you win some, you lose more.
There has been extensive research over the last 2 years by behavioural experts.
But honestly, it hasn't gone far enough.
The government announcement comes in a massive week for punters and betting agencies. The TAB alone will turn over more than $500 million this week and take more than 40 million bets during the Cup Carnival.
Gambling is dangerous and it can destroy your life.
Paul Dowsley, 7 News.
A driver's stunned police getting behind the wheel of a vehicle officers say was in such bad shape it was barely drivable. The car was intercepted north of Werribee and impounded. The driver's been charged for driving while suspended, unregistered and not having an interlock device.
A morning trip on a motorised paraglider has turned this pilot into a lifesaver. He was flying over Miami when he noticed a car submerged in a canal with the driver clinging to the roof. After a rough landing between power lines, he ran to help.
Oh my God! I fell with my car in here.
Alerting a nearby resident to the drama, they pulled the woman to safety before emergency crews arrived. She was relieved and in shock, but otherwise okay.
Wild weather in London has wreaked havoc on preparations for Christmas with giant baubles bigger than cars flying through the streets. Drivers were forced to take evasive action as the silver ornaments were caught in the wind. One hit a lamppost and lost its glittery skin.
Qantas has today marked 100 years since it first carried a paying passenger across the Queensland outback.
Today, a plane load of special guests embarked on a journey to reenact that historic flight.
Flight QF 6660.
Qantas flight 6660 to Charlotte, now boarding.
A special journey to witness where the Qantas story began.
This day, 100 years ago, we did our first commercial flight.
It was 1922 in the dusty Queensland outback when the aviation dream of pilots Hudson Fysh and Paul McGuinness became reality.
And they realised when driving in an old Model T Ford that it would be so much easier if they could fly.
Hand propping was the norm. Travellers felt the wind in their hair. A 2-day journey with just one passenger, his ticket £11.
£11 is a lot of money to pay for a flight in those days.
The Flying Kangaroo's founding fathers would marvel at today's events. A full, fast plane pressurised with passengers celebrating the aviation path they forged.
Absolutely, it revolutionised life in the outback because for the first time people could actually move around in a matter of hours instead of days or weeks.
What started as a small outback airline now carries 100,000 passengers and 1,000 tonnes of freight each day around Australia and the world. Garth Burley, 7 News.
King Charles could be left off our new $5 note. Ahead on 7 News, why personality could trump monarchs on our money.
Plus, how text messages are taking over for families.
The Melbourne hand cream that's just been named Oprah's favourite.
And later, buy, sell or hold. How to make the perfect call on property this spring.
Fewer people are making phone calls than ever before. New research shows 2/3 of Australians prefer to communicate via text or social media apps.
I don't even know why we call it a phone. It's not really a phone. We touch it more than 200 times a day, and on average, we make less than 5 phone calls.
The survey also found older Australians are generally more loyal to their phone provider, with 73% staying with the same telco for at least 3 years.
It was a tough day on the share market as yesterday's rate rise hits the property market. Here's Gemma Acton.
Thanks, Mike and Beck. It's been a lacklustre session on the share market. The ASX 200 ticking up just 10 points to 6,987. Metals and mining companies tried to pull the market higher, while property and tech companies weighed it down. The Aussie dollar is on a treadmill, circulating below and then just above 64 US cents, while oil prices have risen after a surprising drop in US oil stocks. And as home loan rates march higher and property prices fall, it's no surprise to see home buyers borrowing less. But the drop-off in September was sharper than expected across all buyer types, but particularly for owner-occupiers. Guys.
Thanks, Gemma. Australia's long tradition of having a monarch on the $5 note could be about to change.
The Federal Reserve is negotiating with the government to decide if King Charles should follow his mother on the fiver.
After 7 decades of Her Late Majesty staring at us from our money, the Reserve Bank says we'll need change for that $5.
And there is a long tradition of the monarch being on Australia's banknotes.
But he says it won't necessarily continue.
The bank is consulting with the Australian government whether or not the new $5 banknote should include a portrait of King Charles III.
And the government's already said
the Queen's face in the $5 note was about her personally rather than about her status as a monarch.
Australia's early notes after Federation didn't have any royals, featuring miners, loggers, a weir and sheep. That changed in 1923.
King George V was on Australia's first banknote. Monarchs have been on the banknote ever since.
So the $5 question, is the King next in line? The Reserve Bank Governor hoping for a decision later this year, but if it's not the monarch, they'll then have to decide how to decide the new face. Suggestions online include Cathy Freeman, David Gulpilil, everyone from Olivia to Kylie to... There's a petition to Parliament for Steve Irwin. But with 200 million fivers out there, the Queen will be with us for some time. Paul Kanak, 7 News.
A Melbourne business has hit the big time after making Oprah Winfrey's list of her favourite things for 2022. She singled out hand cream maker Murphy & Daughters, saying that'll be her go-to gift this Christmas.
And we've been in massive mass production ever since to try and get as many ready as possible and over there for sale in the US.
The Paran-based company is bracing for a rush of internet orders.
They're lucky, aren't they? Tim Watson's back with sport now. Tim, it's been a successful overseas trip for the Brownlow medalist.
Becky, maybe even better. Patrick Cripps has been picking the minds of some global superstars. Coming up after the break, the Blues skipper reveals to 7 the secrets he picked up. Kieran Maher eyeing off more Cup Carnival glory at Flemington. The Aussie skipper on light duties ahead of a must-win World Cup clash, and an NBA legend dumped as things go from bad to worse for Ben Simmons. Welcome back. Trainers Kieran Maher and Dave Eustace are hoping their golden run continues at Flemington tomorrow. They're basking in the glory of their Melbourne Cup success and have the second favourite in tomorrow's Oaks, Zenzella.
She seems to have thrived. The team very happy with that, aren't they, Dave?
Yeah, she's good. She'll run a big race.
Hopefully we can do plenty of damage. Hopefully most of it on the racetrack.
The Anthony Cummings trained She's Extreme is favourite for the $1 million race. Access to some of the biggest superstars in the sporting world has given Patrick Cripps an added edge this off-season. A new breathing technique, just one of the insights the Brownlow medalist gained from a recent trip to the US.
From a Brownlow to the bakery. Do you consider yourself a bit of a whiz in the kitchen? How do you go with the apron on?
I cook every now and then. Pretty basic though.
Have you got a sweet tooth, or?
I try and stay away from the donuts, but they might get me today, I think.
All right, well, good luck. Patrick Cripps defied his strict off-season diet for a good cause, launching Coles Movember-themed donuts.
Life after footy, found the calling. Men's health, not only mental but the physical side. There's a lot of other people out there, that are going through some tough times. So the more we can be proactive and get on top, both physical and mental health is important.
The 27-year-old is well and truly in the sweet spot of his career. That Brownlow medal safely tucked away at home.
Yesterday when I was at home and I saw it and I looked at it, I'm like, yeah, it's starting to feel real now. So it's pretty cool, mate. I'm not going to lie.
Sightseeing wasn't the only thing on the Carlton captain's itinerary on a recent trip to the US.
We got into some NBA clubs and watched some NFL games. Obviously, got to go to the Nike training facility and did a bit of breathwork training. So that's something that I haven't done a heap of stuff in. I do a bit of stuff like meditation, but more sort of breathing for capacity and things like that. So could be a little 1%er that you never know.
Cripps also sat down with renowned high-performance psychologist Dr. Michael Gervais, a mentor for superstar athletes to Fortune 500 CEOs.
That was nearly the highlight of my trip. I was pretty pumped when I got to meet him. So you listen to someone else's perspective and their wisdom and their knowledge. It's always good to bounce ideas off.
A perspective that has helped Cripps move on from Carlton's brutal 2022 finish.
Footy has a funny way of teaching you lessons, and we learn it the hard way, and we just got to make sure we learn from that.
Andrew McCormack, 7 News.
Collingwood recruit Tom Mitchell met some of his new teammates on day one at the Magpies. The Brownlow medalist is hoping he can help the Pies build on this year's top 4 finish.
As a player, they're the type of players and teams you want to play for. So, I'm just grateful to be a small part of that and hopefully can contribute.
On Alistair Clarkson's first day at North Melbourne, the club delisted Jared Polec after just 50 games in 4 seasons. The Demons are doing their best to ignore the AFLW Grand Final heartache from last season. Their search for an elusive premiership begins on Friday night against the Crows.
We're not even thinking about the grand final at the moment because we're not there, and this is week 1 of finals and you need to earn your spot to make it to the grand final. So that is way down the track for us.
Richmond is unbeaten in the past 6 matches and head into the final series as one of the hottest teams, facing Brisbane on Saturday. Australia is refusing to rule Aaron Finch out of Friday night's do-or-die World Cup clash with Afghanistan. Matthew Wade will be on standby to skipper the side as Finch sweats on the severity of a hamstring injury.
Hobbled but hopeful, Aaron Finch was keen to keep a low profile at this morning's hit-out, but selectors were left with more questions than answers as they get set to make a call on the sore skipper.
To see them out moving, getting up to moderate speed out there is pretty good. I trust the information that Finch will give us and we'll give it the time it needs.
No such issues for Marcus Stoinis though. He's set to be given the green light, while Cam Green spent the morning launching his case for a call-up.
At the fundamental level is Afghanistan are a very strong side and you need 11 fit and firing players to defeat them.
In front of royalty, the old enemy rolled the Kiwis at the Gabba last night.
Straight back over his head.
No doubt we'll be aware of certain permutations.
Australia's hopes of progressing now coming down to their net run rate or relying on upsets.
I'll be next to the toasty machine if it comes down to mathematics. We'll just probably run 20 different scenarios, but first and foremost it's about winning the game.
Needing Ireland to beat New Zealand or Sri Lanka to skittle England. Theodoropoulos,
thumbs up.
7 News.
The Brooklyn Nets have sensationally sacked coach Steve Nash just 7 games into the season. Superstar Kevin Durant found out about Nash's sacking via the media.
I woke up from my nap and turned to the right and seen it on ESPN.
What was your first thought when you saw that?
Oh, shocked. I mean, you're always shocked when a move like this happens, but it's normal in the NBA.
Ben Simmons was sidelined with a knee injury as the Nets went down to the Bulls 108-99. And the Swans are mourning the loss of their most passionate supporter, Kenny Williams. For decades, Williams led the post-match song during some of the club's most famous wins. Kenny's lifelong obsession with the Bloods began in the 1930s when they were based in South Melbourne. The Swans say they're incredibly saddened by the passing of a man who brought so much cheer to all who knew him. Kenny was 93, perhaps the game's most famous conductor, I would say.
So he was passion. The best.
He was.
Thank you very much, Tim. Well, Victoria's rapidly changing real estate market is leaving many unsure whether to buy, sell or hold on to property.
Some are using a sinking market as an opportunity to snap up bargains, while others say now is the time to sell.
Putting the family home up for sale amidst a 7.4% plunge in Melbourne house prices. But Suzanne McConchie's still confident this is a good call.
It's a good time to sell for a renovated property because of the cost of building right now. To be able to buy a finished home puts it at an advantage.
This house used to be an old butcher shop transformed into a modern, energy-efficient family home that costs little to run.
Coldest winter day, it's still warm, but in summer it holds about 10 degrees cooler than it is outside.
Definitely buyers are asking for solar panels. I don't think many buyers have seen a house such as this.
With property prices waning and rents rising, some investors are buying up.
I've personally bought 3 more properties in my own portfolio this year.
Lloyd Edge expects house prices to stabilise in the next few months and urges stressed homeowners to hang on.
So if people can hold off for a couple of more months, then it'll be a better time to sell in the first quarter of next year.
Spring clearance rates have slipped to 60% compared to 85% this time last year, giving buyers more time to negotiate. Experts warn panicked sellers could find themselves without a buyer or in negative equity. The advice is not to fire sale a home, but to look for a cheaper interest rate.
I think prices are definitely going to rebound probably within the next 6 months. We just need to see interest rates stabilise.
Jackie Quist, 7 News.
Jane Bunn joins us now with the weather. And Jane, I don't know if we need to say this, but it's rather cool out there.
It really is indeed there, Mike. But things are changing. Now, yesterday was 13. Next week, it'll be near 30. I'll have the full details on the big warm-up next.
Tonight on the latest from 7 News, a national day of action for Cassius. Full coverage as rallies are held across the country tonight. Plus, check your coin jars, the pennies that could fetch tens of thousands of dollars. Why Harry Potter fans are being told to stop leaving socks at this beach. When it breaks, we'll have it live at 10:55.
Hello again. We still have 2 more cool days to come, but after that, we'll begin a stretch of warmer and sunnier weather. The coldest part of yesterday's weather system moved over us overnight. In amongst rainbows and wintry hail, the city fell right down to 6.9. That is our coldest November morning in 5 years. Pockets of sunshine quickly turned dark again as the next burst of showers spread through. But in amongst those, it briefly reached 15.7. Carrum picked up 30 millimetres. On the other side, Altona had only 1. Showers really are hit and miss. After increasing again this morning, they decreased this afternoon. But this isn't the end of them. There are more approaching, and these here will be spreading through again this evening. It was clear at first across northern Victoria. Then the clouds spread back through as the showers crossed the south and east. It is cold enough for snow up in the Alps now after it retreated back up from the ranges this morning. Now, we can see flurries in all months of the year, but to see this much snow at 1,200 metres, that's quite unusual for November. Cold fronts are moving through, and there's still 1 more to come. That one there will be crossing Victoria overnight into tomorrow morning. So southern and eastern districts continue cold, wet and windy enough to bring losses to sheep. That all ends late tomorrow. Then we'll actually take a break from the rain. All the flood watches have ended, but these rivers do remain with flood warnings. High pressure is taking over. Now tomorrow night, that is still back over to our west. So we continue in a cool southerly airflow with chilly greens on the temperature map. The high moves eastwards on the weekend. It stays there next week. We'll have an extended period of warmer northerlies. Now, yellows here show temperatures in the 20s. Pink in the northwest, and that is the low 30s. Around the nation tomorrow, sunshine for Brisbane, sunny in Sydney before local showers at night. Canberra and Adelaide are dry, Hobart cloudy. Temperatures are jumping up in Perth, 31 and sunny. To Victoria, the front brings another burst of showers over the south and east with cloud for the rest. But it is an easing trend. There's hardly anything left by tomorrow night. Snow only about the peaks, cool to cold in a moderate southwesterly wind. In closer in, showers increase overnight. They'll continue in the morning and then ease during the afternoon. By tomorrow night, it should be dry across the Melbourne area. It remains cool though. It's a top of 15 tomorrow and a moderate southwesterly wind. Showers passing through in the morning, they'll ease in the afternoon. On the 8-day outlook, fairly grey on Friday, just a hint of drizzle under that. Then conditions steadily improve over the weekend. 13 yesterday, nearly 30 next week. Have a look at this run of warmer and sunnier weather, heading to 22, then 24, then 26, then near that 30 degrees. The chance of showers late in the week. 15 tomorrow, showers ease in the afternoon, then so much better from the weekend onwards. Wow. I've got some great news.
I can speak for everyone, I say. Finally. Thanks, Jane. And that's 7 News for this Wednesday. We'll have updates throughout the night.
For now, from the 7 News team, take care. Good night.